All right, so in the last video, we really focused on why the New England colonies were formed, why England claimed these colonies, and why people moved there, and also what your life would have been like if you lived in one of these New England colonies, in one of their New England self-sufficient villages. This video is going to focus on the middle colonies, and specifically for the middle colonies, we're going to learn why the middle colonies were formed and what your life would have been like if you lived there. This particular video is all about why the middle colonies were claimed by England. So the middle colonies are made up of 4 colonies: our very own Pennsylvania, to the north, New York, to the east, New Jersey, and of course, Delaware. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time on New York, New Jersey, and Delaware, but we're going to focus the most time on our very own Pennsylvania. I think that's really the root of what made the middle colonies what they were. So when it comes to this first question, how did England come to take control of the land that is now the middle colonies? You might be surprised, but England was not the first European country to claim the land that became the middle colonies. In fact, the Netherlands, this tiny little country in Europe, had claimed some of the land that is now the middle colonies, and they gave it a very clever name, New Netherlands. And then Sweden also had claimed some of the land, and they gave it a very clever name of New Sweden. But obviously, England will eventually come to take control of that land. And how that happened is pretty simple. England wanted it, and so England fought for it. And since England was the strongest country in the world back then, they had the strongest army in the world, it was a pretty simple defeat of the Netherlands and Sweden. And so England came to take control of the land that is now the middle colonies. And the King of England at the time was still King James I, and now he has all this new land in the Americas, and he decides he wants to give this gift to someone, give this land as a gift to someone that he cares for very much. Now, he doesn't have any children, so he's going to choose to give this land to his brother. Now, his brother is also a pretty important person over in England. He's not a king, obviously. He has a title called a duke, and he is the duke of a place in England called York. So King James I decides to give this new land that he just won to his brother, who has the title of the Duke of York. And the Duke of York decides to turn this new land into some colonies, and he calls these colonies New York and New Jersey. New York after a place in England called York, and New Jersey after a place in England called Jersey. And then he also turned some of that land into a colony that they call Delaware. And that's pretty much all I'm going to tell you about New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. That once England won this land, they turned it into 3 colonies: New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. But I think you're most excited to learn about Pennsylvania and the history of Pennsylvania. Well, I'm sure that somewhere along the line, you've probably learned where Pennsylvania got its name from. And you're probably right, but maybe a little bit wrong. So you've probably learned that the name Pennsylvania is called Pennsylvania. The Penn comes after a gentleman named William Penn, and Sylvania means woods. So you put it together, and Pennsylvania means Penn's woods. And if you learn that, you are totally right. But you're also might be a little bit wrong, because what I'm going to tell you is the William Penn you think Pennsylvania was named after maybe isn't the right one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tell you the story of how Pennsylvania became a colony, and specifically then where that name came from. So we know that Pennsylvania was the 11th colony that England claimed. And by the time England will claim Pennsylvania, it won't be King James I anymore. There will be many kings that are coming and going. But when Pennsylvania becomes a colony, the King of England will be this guy with a really awesome head of hair, King Charles II of England. And during this time period, King Charles II was BFFs, best friends forever, with this guy, Admiral William Penn. He was called the Admiral because he was head of the entire British Navy, part of the England's military then. And they were BFFs. Now, if I tell you a little bit about Admiral William Penn, I'm just going to call him Admiral Penn. He had three children. His oldest child was named after himself. His name was William Penn. So that's why I'm going to call the father just Admiral Penn, and the son, I'll call him William Penn. That way it doesn't get confusing. Now, Admiral Penn, the head of the British Navy, was kind of ashamed and disappointed in his son, William Penn. And that might sound really strange, but there's a reason for that. You see, back then, obviously in England, the attitude is follow the religion of the king or get out. It's my way or the highway. And William Penn did not follow the king's religion. Instead, William Penn belonged to a religious group that called themselves the Society of Friends. Now, if you think about that name, that sounds very butterflies and rainbows. And it kind of was. Here the king was like, follow my religion or get out, do it my way or get out. Where the Society of Friends was totally different. Their attitude was basically, come one, come all, everyone is welcome. It's like, oh, you're a Methodist? That's okay. Come and join us. Oh, you're a Lutheran? No problem. Your religion is fine with us. Come join us. It doesn't matter what religion you are, everyone was welcome as part of the Society of Friends. Now, you've probably never heard of the Society of Friends because it actually goes by a much more common name. They often go by the name of Quakers. And I often get students that are like, oh, yeah, I've learned about Quakers before. The attitude of the Quakers, the attitude of the Society of Friends is a simple one, come all, everyone is welcome. It doesn't matter what religion you are welcome. Now, here we have Admiral William Penn, the head of the British Navy, BFFs with the king, and his very own son was part of this religious group, the Quakers. In fact, William Penn even spent some time in jail for being part of this religious group. And so Admiral Penn was very much ashamed of his son for being part of this group. Now, somewhere along the line of King Charles II's friendship with Admiral Penn loaned some money to the king, which means that the king now owes Admiral Penn that money. He is in debt to Admiral Penn. No big deal. But then Admiral Penn dies. Well, when Admiral Penn dies, that simply means that debt, the amount of money that King Charles II owes to Admiral Penn, doesn't go away. King Charles II now owes that money to Admiral Penn's oldest child. And that oldest child is William Penn. Now, King Charles II has a serious problem. In fact, he's got two serious problems. Problem number one, he owes money to a Quaker. Ugh, the worst thing is to have to owe money to one of these Quakers. And the second problem that the king has is he's got a bunch of these Quakers living in England. And so King Charles II comes up with a brilliant plan. He's actually going to kill two birds with one stone. He's going to solve both problems with one solution. King Charles II realizes that he has some land over in the Americas he hasn't used yet. And so what he decides to do is instead of giving the money to William Penn that he owes him, he is going to give William Penn permission to start a colony in the Americas and give him the land to start a colony there. And so that takes care of that problem. He's no longer going to owe William Penn the money. He's going to give him permission or a charter to start a colony in the Americas. And then he basically says to William Penn, hey, go start this colony. And oh, while you're at it, bring all your Quaker friends with you, which means he's going to get rid of these Quakers in England. They're all going to get out of his land and move to the Americas. So this land does get named Pennsylvania. It is, however, not named after the William Penn you always thought of. The king is going to name this land. Do you think the king is going to name this land after William Penn, a Quaker? Oh, no, absolutely not. He's actually going to name this land after his BFF, Admiral Penn. And so Pennsylvania does get the name Pennsylvania, not named after William Penn, the guy who starts the colony, but actually named after his father, Admiral Penn. And so now we have the colony of Pennsylvania, and a bunch of Quakers move into this land. And this is absolutely awesome because remember, the Quaker attitude is come one, come all, everyone is welcome. And you know what? People hear that and people listen. And people of all religions, because, everyone's welcome, move into Pennsylvania and move into the middle colonies. Now, this is an important vocabulary word. People who move into another place or move into another country are called, well, I'll give you a hint. You already know that a good shipped into a place is called an import because in and im go together. So people who move into another country are called, well, it's also going to start with im. They're called immigrants. And so now we have the Quakers spread throughout the middle colonies. And that attitude of come one, come all, everyone is welcome spreads as well. And so immigrants of all religions move into the middle colonies all throughout Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. And these immigrants, they don't have a lot of money to begin with. And they spend what little money they have on the ship ride across the ocean to get to this land. And then once they're there, they have such a small amount of money left that they use that money to buy a small piece of land. And that small piece of land is going to be used as a small farm so that they have some land that they can grow some crops and do something to make a living. And really, once they buy that small piece of land for that small farm, they're pretty much going to be out of money. These immigrants are extremely poor. So it's time to get your notes open. I want you to open up to where it says middle colonies. It should be that one, two, third page there. And when you're looking at the middle colonies, by the way, William Penn, the Quaker, you've probably seen his face before. He is the face of the Quaker Oats Company. William Penn, the Quaker, is the face of Quaker Oats. All right, so let's see if we can fill these in. William Penn, a blank, started the colony of Pennsylvania. Well, I kind of just gave that away. William Penn, a Quaker. Go ahead and fill that in your notes. Now, once the Quakers moved to Pennsylvania, they quickly spread throughout the middle colonies of New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. And so, throughout the middle colonies, they had the Quaker attitude. The Quaker attitude is very, very simple. It's very butterflies and rainbows. Come one, come all, everyone is welcome. So, go ahead and fill that in. And so imagine this attitude of come one, come all, everyone is welcome spreads throughout the middle colonies. And because of this, people of all religions and backgrounds are able to move into the middle colonies safely. And people who move into a place are called immigrants. And they use what little money they have to buy land for a small farm. And these immigrants don't really know how to farm. And farming is hard. So once they do buy that land for a small farm, they're going to focus on growing just one particular crop because they can learn how to do that pretty well. So that is where we're going to head next. Now, we need to know this very important vocabulary word. People who come to another country, and they come for many reasons. In this case, they're coming for religious freedom, and those are called immigrants. Now, in the next video, you are going to look like, okay, if you moved into the middle colonies during this time period, if you were one of these immigrants, what would your life look like? So that's going to be what you will learn in the next video.